Because of its poignancy, the track entitled The Flood has been specially selected for its creativity musically as well as its graphic formation, featured on the Main Street album. 50% of the whole album eventually going to the aid of the war in Syria, a global disaster if ever there was one. In the meantime, here are 3 tracks, including The Flood, which I hope you will like. Nothing would please me more than for you to demand the completion of my album ASAP. Whilst writing my own songs takes a little time, but in anticipation, may I thank you for your understanding. Now, for each download of each of these 3 tracks, the price will be just 97 pence, with 50% going towards the Global Disaster Relief Fund, in this case, Syria. You be the judge of my ability, because what is more important is the fundraising in itself, in as far as 50% of all downloads and or any single going towards the one worthwhile cause. The album will consist of 12 tracks, which of course will include the current 3. Avago, as you may have figured, stems from the phrase have a go, which I hope you will literally do in your own contributions. Now, regarding the ceaseless bombing and gassing used against the innocent Syrian people, and in this case, I have put the emphasis on the young boy featured in The Flood, but caught up in the midst of the bombing. In his bewilderment, the voice progresses into a much more frightening tone. So much so that it becomes increasingly more anxious, and he is therefore trying to live in the moment. But everything rapidly approaches a point of no return. An even more sad situation develops when the boy turns to an elder, who could well be the parent, and says, "What sort of problems will this create?" And so it goes on, without the parent not being able to give any meaningful answer. The voice can only do so much for the imagination and the listener, using lyrics and atmospheric music of The Flood as a springboard for horrific situations in the Syrian conflict, as words can have a whole number of various and different meanings. Now, for the young boy caught up, wherever it may be in such a life-threatening environment, that normal living, such as parental gifts, are now meaningless and totally non-existent, and therefore totally insignificant. Let us spare a little reflective thought when we celebrate Christmas and birthdays. As in the case of the small Syrian boy as seen on television and the national press, being rescued from the rubble of his house after the many regular airstrikes in a distress and tearful bewilderment. Put it this way. Imagine if this was a dream, becoming a nightmare, waking up in a sweat, momentarily not knowing where you are, but realizing it was a bad dream. The difference being that the Syrian boy's tragedy was not a dream. It was for real. End of. No, not quite. This terrible so-called normal program will resume service again tomorrow, or perhaps sooner. When in peacetime and given the chance, most of the Syrian people are some of the most well-mannered and helpful in the whole world. Hence the popularity of tourism prior to the war, such as the visits to the various biblical cities. Amongst all the innocent populations of the world who have suffered hardship through war with no end in sight, the ordinary Syrian people stand out. The greatest gift one can give to these people in life is life itself. Let us pray that one day this will eventually happen. And even then, with our prayers answered, which will be a huge gift in itself, there will be an enormous funding required in clearance and rebuilding. Thank you for taking a little time from your busy lives, which they have no such luxury, and pause for a little while to reflect. No comparison really, is there? Please spread the message and adopt the flood as an anthem, if you like. And even to a certain extent, the sequel, It's No More, to friends with whom you may come into contact with, or through various forms of social media. At 97% per download, or £2.91 for all three, and 50% at least going to Syrian relief, channeled through authorised fund management, which I will endeavour to monitor. May I say thank you for your very kind generosity. Once again, thank you and God bless.